What's up, guys? We're back. This is Submit to Reality number 5, and a lot to talk about, and I'm sorry it's been a delay. There's definitely some things I want to talk about, and mostly it has to do with mixed martial arts. UFC 129 was an incredible event. What were your overall thoughts, Bill?
I thought it was a great show. Just having 55,000 people, having that atmosphere that you've never felt before for the UFC was tremendous. I think you noticed a big difference in the fighters. I think you noticed a difference in the overall production of the show. Like, it was kind of like their WrestleMania. You could kind of feel it. But like WrestleMania, there were some moments that I liked and some moments that I didn't like. And for me, the top three fights, of course, I felt like the main event belonged on the prelims. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if that gets me, heat from the fans, but that's the bottom line for me. But I did, I did enjoy the show. I thought it had a completely different feel from a normal UFC, though.
I agree. I honestly felt like the card delivered until the main event, which I
That's right.
think is horrible. I think that the people that wanted to see George St. Pierre fight, we didn't get to see him fight. We got to see a sparring session. That's what we got. But first off, before I go on about George, because I'm going to go on about George, I am pissed about George St. Pierre, okay, and I have a lot to say. But anyways, I thought Lyoto Machida looked incredibly impressive. I think a lot of people underrate his wrestling skills. People will say that Randy just wanted to stand there with him. He really didn't. He did try to close the distance a couple of times and try to take him down, and Lyoto's hips were able to get out. Lyoto has pretty good wrestling. He does train with AKA on his wrestling, not with Cain Velasquez and stuff, and he showed that against Tito. And honestly, I felt like the Tito fight with Lyoto Machida was very similar. Tito was constantly putting pressure on Lyoto, getting frustrated in the stand-up, losing in the stand-up aspect, and then when he did try to get his wrestling going, it didn't work. And unfortunately for Randy, he got freaking Karate Kid crane kicked right in the face.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, obviously, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. Randy Couture will always be Randy Couture. He's a legend of the sport, and maybe that's not the way he wanted to go out, but he's still going out. He didn't lose any fans. He's probably gained more fans than he already has, which is almost impossible. But it was good to see Randy go out like a warrior, and at least it wasn't one of those like Chuck Liddell knockouts,
Yeah.
like where Chuck, you thought you were genuinely concerned for the guy, like because he was knocked out so bad. Randy, it wasn't the case. He came to pretty quick, and he seemed to be okay after the fight. So, for me, you have to have a certain style to defeat Lyoto Machida, and I think that guys that are aggressive, you have to have decent stand-up to follow that, in my opinion. You saw it with the Shogun fight. Shogun put it on him pretty bad, and I think Shogun mentally broke him the first fight before they had their rematch, but I feel like Shogun had the right game plan. He used his Muay Thai, and I felt like that it worked well for him. And with Randy, unfortunately, he didn't have the stand-up skills to really set up his wrestling skills, and like you said, Lyoto's already elusive, so it didn't end up being a good night for Randy, but I still really enjoyed the fight, and he got a huge ovation after the fight as well. So
I agree, and really the key to beating Lyoto Machida is leg kicks. You've got to stop him from backing up, and when he does back up, you've got to make him pay for it. That's what Shogun was able to do. Randy was pretty much just went in there and tried to do that type of game plan, but only with punches, and it just didn't work. And in my opinion, I think Randy looks slower. I think Randy's chin is definitely not the same. You can see when he gets hit with just small shots, I'm not saying it will knock him out, but you can see that it affects him a lot more than it used to. I think this is a perfect time for Randy to retire, and I really think Randy will retire. Fight of the night for sure. Before the Mark Hominick and Jose Aldo fight, which was fight of the night, I was impressed with Benson Henderson. He looked like a beast. He refused to submit in very tough submissions, and when he when he got out of the submissions, he had so much aggression, and he really tried to finish the fight. I really respect that out of Ben, and he's always an exciting fighter, and I feel like he's definitely going to be in the mix in the 155 division.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I hadn't really seen a lot of Benson Henderson. I obviously heard of his name, but yeah, he really impressed me. And like you said, his aggression was second to none, and he did a great job in the fight. And then you had Mark Hominick and Jose Aldo for the 145 championship. And to me, I was blown away by the first round with Jose Aldo, like how good he really was, because I expected Hominick to put on a different level of technical striking, and I didn't think Aldo was going to be able to keep up with his speed. And not only did he keep up with his speed the first round, but he made him look horrible. And to me, I mean, it was just an amazing fight all around. But after the second round, or excuse me, during the second round, you noticed that Aldo was much slower, and that's when you saw Hominick start connecting more and more. But obviously, as the fight went on, Aldo was able to do some significant damage to Hominick.
I agree. In my opinion, if they do a rematch of this fight, I feel like Hominick is not going to do very well. I feel like the first round is really what Aldo's about, but the layoff and him gaining muscle and him having a hard weight cut and all that stuff affected him to the point where Hominick was able to put much more damage on him than probably normally would have happened. It made it a very exciting fight. It showed Hominick's heart, and I feel like Hominick's basically his stock still rised even after a loss.
Yeah, and Hominick, man, I mean, I felt like I wish it would almost went to a draw because I felt like Hominick deserved to have the belt. I felt like Hominick could have walked away with that belt, but I think Aldo the last round he just quit, dude. He was done. He was so gassed. He was so tired. He was just eating punches from the guard the whole round, pretty much. So
I agree.
You know, for me, Aldo was very tired, but he didn't look like a champion coming out. He's going to have a lot to prove his next performance. But I think, you know, he's definitely, top pound for pound in that division. I mean, he showed a lot, but after that first round, you know, he really faded quite a bit. And especially the fifth round. The fifth round, he was completely dead. He was still able to, put damage on Hominick through most of the fight. But that fifth round, man, Hominick really shined.
Okay. Now on to Georgie. All right, listen. I vented a lot on my Twitter when this fight very first happened, and I've had some time to think about it, and I've heard other people's cases, and I pretty much still feel the same way. Okay? First off, I do not want any George St. Pierre fans that started watching back in like 07 and 08 because they saw his t-shirt for Affliction and decided to buy it and wanted to see what he was all about, give me crap about what I'm about to say. George St. Pierre used to be a killer, okay? The very first time I saw George St. Pierre fight was UFC 48, and I saw him fight Jay Huron. He went in there and absolutely destroyed Jay Huron, okay? He was a stand-up striker that most people hadn't seen those stand-up skills in the UFC that often. He was one of those guys that really blew you away when you first saw him fight. Okay, then he goes in, he fights Matt Hughes, right? And that's the way the UFC used to work back then. You win like one welterweight fight or two welterweight fights and you automatically get a title shot because there was no competition. Okay, goes in there, fights Matt Hughes. He's extremely intimidated by Matt Hughes. To the point to where Matt Hughes puts him in an armbar with 1 second left. George doesn't even try to fight it off at all. As soon as the armbar's put on, he immediately taps. 1 second left. And George just looks down at the ground. Okay? At that point, I kind of saw, wow, George, mentally might not all be there. Okay, then he goes on this freaking killing spree. He destroys Frank Trigg, beats Jason Mayhem Miller, goes out there and beats BJ Penn. So then you're like, okay, wow, George is the real deal. Goes in there and destroys Matt Hughes. I absolutely love that fight. I mean, he humiliated Matt Hughes, and he freaking leg tripped him, and he kicked him in the face, and I mean, he destroyed Matt Hughes. Love the fight. When Matt Serra came around and knocked him out, because I was there, me and Bill were there, and it was so shocking and so crazy.
That was huge.
George has become a mental midget. Okay? Granted, he did finish Serra and he finished BJ Penn. The BJ Penn fight is highly controversial, and they don't allow guys to be treated by the way that they did back then because of that fight, because they said he greased, and you could see BJ's leg slip. Granted, George was dominating him. I don't really put too much into that. But
it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the fight, in my opinion.
George would have won, for sure. But there was some controversy there. Then you've got the revenge fight on Serra. Went in there, destroyed him, yeah, cool.
That was awesome.
Yes. Then you've got the John Fitch fight where he absolutely picked John Fitch apart on the feet. But there is no killer instinct in George. And then after the John Fitch fight, we're talking boring city, okay? We've got the Dan Hardy fight. And the reason that I go on about this stuff is, okay, Dan Hardy got destroyed by Carlos Condit, knocked out in the first round. George St. Pierre couldn't finish this kid in 5 rounds. And he took him down all the time. And then he put on an arm bar on Dan Hardy. And George is giving it all his might to try to finish him with this arm bar. And he's doing the wrong technique. And it's like, okay, so this guy's pound for pound the best fighter in the world, and he doesn't even know how to pull off a basic armbar? And he can't stand and strike with this guy at all? Even though Dan Hardy, yes, his striking is his bread and butter, but it's not like it's impossible to knock this guy out. George St. Pierre has good stand-up skills. I wouldn't be pissed off about George St. Pierre if I thought that he sucked, if I thought that he didn't have the skills to do this. George St. Pierre has great stand-up skills. He has great wrestling skills. He has all the skill in the world when it comes to mixed martial arts. The only problem is mentally, okay?
Yeah, that's what I think too. And to me, I'm going to go back just a little bit, but UFC 100, the Thiago Alves fight, dude, like Thiago Alves was looked at as like a killer on the feet. And to me, like, I was like, man, this is a fight that GSP really has to worry about,
Yep.
This guy's got good wrestling. He's got really good stand-up. If GSP can't put him on his back, he's going to be forced to stand with him, and it's going to be a bad night for him.
Uh-huh.
Well, GSP goes in there, he outstrikes him, and he gets him so worried about the takedown that he's able to pretty much pick him apart on the feet and dominate him, So, I mean, you've seen some bright spots with GSP, but recently, his last few fights, man, you can tell that he is a very mentally weak competitor at this point. And I know you're still talking about this, but to me, I read Bas Rutten's blog on GSP and his defense on GSP, and I totally understand where Bas is coming from. And it was very interesting to read because it did open my eyes a little bit. But, fighter, counter fighter, to me, you still have, when you're a champion and when you're perceived as one of the top pound for pound in the world, you've got to go out there to not just win but finish the fight. And you don't see that killer instinct in GSP anymore. You don't see that hunger to go out there and finish the fight. And I think that's why the fans, even in Canada, they weren't even really chanting GSP's name the last few minutes of the fight because they were just kind of like, ugh. They were kind of upset about what they just saw. That's supposed to be their hero. That's their role model. And he went out there and put on a poor performance.
Okay, I'm not done. So then you've got Josh Koscheck, right? You put the jab in his face all day long to the point where you've completely closed his eyes shut, and that was basically after round 1. 4 rounds with one eye, and you couldn't do anything to this guy. You couldn't knock him out. You just farted around in there and just kept on putting the jab in there, basically. Okay?
And Koscheck's been knocked out before, so it's not an impossible thing to do.
He got knocked out by Paulo Thiago, for goodness sake.
Yep.
Okay? So we're talking pound for pound, best fighter in the world, and this guy can't finish nobody. Okay? Now, the main event, Jake Shields, George St. Pierre. Here is my biggest issue. Okay. Jake Shields' stand-up is garbage. It's 100% garbage. His bread and butter is the floor. Jiu-jitsu. That's what he does in wrestling. When I thought about this fight, I thought Jake would somehow find a way to get George down. Jake looked like a freaking deer in headlights. He did not want to engage. He did not want to do anything but basically spar with George St. Pierre. So you know what I expected? I expected George to be like, look, son, you're in my game now, and I'm going to completely tear you apart. What happened? He got punched in the eye in the second round and started complaining about it the whole entire time, saying he can't see. Although his last fight, he fought a guy with one eye completely shut, and Josh Koscheck didn't even want to mention his eye. He was ready to go in there and throw down.
And not even that. I mean, the fight before, Mark Hominick had a hematoma on his head the size of a small mountain. I mean, it was gigantic. And then he wants to go out there and complain about his eye. But go ahead.
Okay, and then we have basically, 3 full rounds after that to where George can completely tear Jake Shields a new one in the stand-up. And what does he do? He spars with him. No killer instinct, no nothing. How many times did George say, I'm going to finish this fight. I'm going to finish this fight. I have to finish this fight. Nothing. It didn't even look like he had a desire to finish the fight. He's just there to score points, to win rounds. In my opinion now, the killer that George St. Pierre used to be, the stand-up striker, the guy that was well-rounded that could destroy his opponents, is now a gymnastic athlete that has no heart or balls. I am sick and tired of paying money to watch George St. Pierre perform on pay-per-view and deliver a sparring session or a amateur wrestling match, because that's what he does. He had 5 rounds with Dan Hardy, didn't put 1 mark on his face. 5 rounds. Not 1 mark on his face. That is pathetic.
To me, like, I wasn't really that harsh on GSP. You were definitely harsh on GSP before this fight even.
Yes.
And you were very outspoken about him not being able to finish fights. And I was like, well, he really outclassed Josh Koscheck, Dan Hardy. I was like, well, it could just be, just bad luck, I mean, it's one of those things. GSP is still one of the pound-for-pound best in the world. I think he's got it there mentally. I disagreed with you in that aspect, but then when I saw him get punched in the eye and the way he talked in the corner and how panicked he was, he was telling freaking his trainer, he was like, dude, I can't see out of my eye. I can't see. And they're like, yes, you can, George. Yes, you can. You're okay.
And Greg Jackson's he's like, it's okay. You still have 1 more.
And it would be one thing if he went to the doctor and they're like, dude, this guy has serious damage to his retina. I'm surprised he even made it through the fight, yada, yada, yada. But he was out at the club with John Jones 2 days after his fight.
Yep.
And he can't train for 10 days?
Yeah.
And so to me, it just shows how if you pressure GSP now, he's going to panic and he's going to fold. Just like you said before, I obviously didn't really buy into it, but dude, if you get someone that can put the pressure on him and has decent stand-up, he will crumble. He is a mental midget, like you said, and maybe that's just a recent thing, but he hasn't been able to finish fights, so maybe that's really had an impact on his confidence as a fighter.
Just a couple other things. I had some comments. One person was like, okay, well, Dan Henderson couldn't finish Jake Shields, so why do you think GSP did? Listen, if Jake Shields was forced to stand with Dan Henderson for 5 rounds, Jake Shields might be in a coma still today, okay? That is a huge difference. The bottom line is you took the game of Jake Shields completely away and put him into something that he did not feel comfortable with and that he was not good at, and you still couldn't do anything. In fact, you let him bust your face up. He freaking looked like he almost broke George's nose. George was bleeding. All of his face was all busted up from a guy who has no power. 0 power.
And very little technique, too.
And you're going to call this guy pound for pound best fighter in the world? What? There is a reason why Manny Pacquiao is viewed as a better fighter than Floyd Mayweather. Because I'll tell you what, Floyd Mayweather goes in there and he wins fights, but they're boring. Manny is an extremely exciting fighter. Manny usually finishes opponents, and Manny is not one of those guys that's going in for a sparring session. He's going in there to go to war. Granted, did Benson Henderson finish Mark Bocek? No, he did not. But he looked like he tried to. And that's what I want from George St. Pierre. I want that killer instinct. Now, before people want to rag on me, whatever, listen, I know George St. Pierre could kick my ass. I'm not saying that. I know the guy is an amazing talent, and I'm not saying that he isn't talented. All I'm saying is ever since Matt Serra put 4 knuckles to his chin, the guy has become a coward, man. He is mentally not there anymore, and I guarantee you his worst nightmare is, don't be scared, homie, Nick Diaz. If Nick Diaz gets his opportunity to fight George St. Pierre, I promise you, if Nick Diaz was in that fight in the 3rd round, George St. Pierre would have pissed his pants. Because I guarantee you that he would have folded. If you put any hurt on George St. Pierre at all, say you just rock that guy is done. He is so worried about losing that title, and all you got to do is just give him an inkling of doubt, and he will run with it, man.
And for me, Shields, as disappointed as I am in GSP, I'm just as disappointed in Shields, too.
Oh, I agree.
because Shields totally choked. And I mean, I'm not in the situation where I'm main eventing a UFC in front of 55,000 people in my opponent's hometown. All right, I get that. I totally get that. But that's something that you have to prepare for as a fighter, and you can't let it affect your performance. And just like GSP didn't go in there to finish, freaking Jake Shields didn't go in there to win the belt either.
Yeah, and he said he did. He said that's what he was going to do. He's going to be different than everybody else, and he's not going in there.
And he's going after him. Dude, he didn't go after him at all.
He didn't do nothing. He went in there and freaking just sparred with him.
And that's the difference between a guy like Nick Diaz and a guy like Jake Shields. To me, Nick Diaz doesn't care about the fans. He doesn't care about any of that crap. He'll fight you in his backyard.
Yep.
Nick Diaz is a true fighter. This guy just wants to make money. This guy wants to fight. When he is in there with you, he is in there to go to war. You might as well consider it a street fight.
Yep.
Because this guy is going to win. And that's what he does every fight. He goes in there to put a hurting on people, and he is there to go to war, just like Manny Pacquiao is there to go to war. So I think that's a huge difference. Nerves will not affect a guy like Diaz, in my opinion.
I don't think so. The thing about Diaz, too, is, okay, Paul Daly is a dangerous striker. So what does Nick Diaz do? Does he want to go out there and have a boring fight? Does he want to go out there and just control him on the ground and maybe try to put a submission on him like his buddy Jake did? No. He goes out there and he stands and bangs with him, and he finishes Paul Daly off in Paul Daly's specialty. He did the same thing with Cyborg Santos. He was standing with Cyborg because he knew that was his specialty, and Nick went in there and threw down. Nick will take your game. He will take whatever you have, and then when you are done and have nothing left, he's still ready to go out there and pound you, and then he finishes you off. Nick Diaz breaks your will. He breaks your soul. I guarantee you Paul Daly will never be the same. I heard an interview with Paul Daly after that fight like 2 weeks later. You want to talk about a humble kid already talking about retirement, dude, because that's what Nick Diaz does. And if Nick Diaz gets the opportunity, if the UFC steps up and pays him the money, then I guarantee you George St. Pierre is in a fight of his life. And he better bring that killer instinct out, or Nick Diaz will be the new UFC 170 champion.
I think I can't say it any better than that. So we're just going to wrap up the UFC talk after that. Do you have anything else to talk about as far as the UFC goes, besides the fact that they're coming to Houston, Texas in October with a fan expo?
I know, I can't wait. We're going to Strikeforce and UFC. Hey, Bill, who's the number one guy you want to meet at the expo?
Probably Anderson Silva.
Anderson?
The guy's a phenom, and the guy has an aura around him, and I definitely, love the opportunity to meet him. Randy Couture is another one. We were supposed to meet him at the UFC 169, like little meet and greet that they had, but we didn't get an opportunity to do that, so I'd love the opportunity to meet Randy. Even Chuck, obviously if Tito was there, I'd love to meet Tito again. How about you?
Vanderlei.
Yes. Oh my dear God, I can't believe I left him out.
Vanderlei, I'd like to meet Vitor. Vitor's up there. Rich Franklin, Forrest Griffin, all those guys. I'd be all cool with that.
It's just so crazy, like, how deep their roster is now. How big this thing really is getting. Like, we talk about, like, UFC 50, and we talk about, like, George St. Pierre's first title shot against Matt Hughes. Like, dude, the rosters are so much deeper now, and that's every division. Every division is loaded. Every division is exciting. So hopefully, I mean, I don't. There's always going to be an exciting fight on a UFC card. So,
well, and what I love too is that the UFC is taking care of Father Time. Once Father Time goes in there and starts ticking, these guys are on their way out. There's nothing you can do about it. They're not going to stick around because they just can't hang. They're going to get beat. So it's just it's a thing where you're just constantly you get attached to certain fighters and then they get old and they move on. Oh, by the way, another huge one at the expo, Rampage Jackson. If Quentin Rampage Jackson is there, I'll be the first one in line, man.
Yeah. He just has to get past Matt Hamill, which I think will be no problem.
Yeah, I think he'll get past the hammer.
Unless Matt decides to go in there, and there's a very good chance if he just takes down Rampage and doesn't let Rampage move and just smothers him, he could win on points.
Yeah, I don't see it. I
don't see it. Matt Hamill doesn't have a great chin, dude, and Rampage put it on him.
Well, and not just that, like, I think that Matt Hamill's wrestling is pretty good, but I don't see it the same type of wrestling that frustrated Rampage like Rashad. Rashad was based off explosiveness and timing. Matt Hamill's more of one that's just going to kind of try to take your leg and try to work you down, and I don't think he's going to get Rampage down a lot. So I think that's going to be a tough fight for Matt Hamill, and I definitely don't see him winning.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, the sport constantly changes. Fighters get better on a fight to fight basis, so anything can happen.
Well, do we have anything to talk about that's pro wrestling related? Because honestly, there's not much clicking in my head right now. Besides the
We got
fact
a little
that,
bit to talk about. How about TNA changing their name to Impact Wrestling?
yeah, I heard that's just the show though. Now they're saying it's just the show.
See, but
Just the TNA Impact show. They're saying it's just Impact Wrestling. That's what it's going to be called now. But I guess they're still going to have the TNA banner. I don't know.
so you
Just make it
tell
more
me that
confusing.
they're going to go on a freaking like board meeting and go through all this hard work and discussion just so they can, instead of calling it TNA Impact, they're going to call it Impact Wrestling?
That's
Like,
the minds of TNA right there, the
I
geniuses that are running the company. I'm telling you.
I know, and this is a spoiler alert, so if you're listening, stop right now. Okay, I gave you about 5 seconds. It's good enough.
Who
Anyway,
cares?
China is coming back to professional wrestling. The reason I laugh is this is a former porn star, former drug addict, former
Former drug addict. What are you talking
yeah,
about?
current drug addict. I have no idea. I mean, she dated X-Pac for goodness sake, so I mean, I'm sure they definitely enjoyed their lines. But what I don't understand is there is a reason why this female, if that's what you want to call her, has not been involved in professional wrestling for a long time. And I want to know who in TNA thought, oh, you know what's going to be great? Because Karen and Jeff keep getting the one up on Kurt Angle. We're going to bring in China.
As Kurt Angle's mistress, so like Kurt Angle has to act proud that he slept with her,
It
or I
needs
don't.
to make out with her, man. Like, that is disgusting. And I feel so bad for Kurt,
Let's demean Kurt Angle a little bit
Yeah,
more.
why not? I mean, you already have him job out to Jeff Jarrett every week, so why not?
Oh my gosh! Already like made his public like drama with Karen and Jeff Jarrett. Already put that on TV. So let's just have him make out with China now.
Yep, let's just.
Kurt, why are you renewing your contract again?
Yeah.
Because it's like a reduced schedule for you? Who cares? I'd rather have you work indies and get paid a bunch of money and at least get to go out there and wrestle than have you be embarrassed like this.
Yeah, and then maybe you can be in WWE films instead of that B-rate crap that, like, dude, he said one of his movies, the budget was $20,000. $20,000.
Was that the one with him, Scott Hall, and Sid Vicious?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I saw that on Redbox the other day. I'm not kidding. It was like him, Sid Vicious, and Kevin Nash, I think. I don't know if it was Scott Hall. No way. That guy's no condition to be in a movie. But yeah, I'm baffled. Why would you agree to that? Like, you're trying to be an actor and you want to be in the same movie with two other wrestlers? That's going to flop right away.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's one thing if you have, like, The Rock and Stone Cold in a movie together, which I still want, by the way. But, like, Kurt Angle and a bunch of old has-beens, like, just come on, Kurt. And then he talks about his Angle foods, and he's freaking always getting pulled over for DUIs and crap. Like, I mean, like, Kurt Angle obviously is not all there right now mentally. I love the guy.
I wouldn't be either, though, if I worked for TNA.
Yeah,
I'd start to try to believe something to try to make myself feel happier.
And to me, like, TNA is a freaking sinking ship, and they asked Vince if he'd buy it, and he said maybe, which makes me kind of wonder if, like, maybe there's even actually been talk about him buying that thing. Because I guarantee you, like, basically when TNA goes out of business, you're just going to all of a sudden get online and you're just going to see TNA Wrestling bought or TNA Wrestling no longer with Spike TV or something. And it's going to happen soon. It's a complete train wreck right now, I don't know. And then it's like shoot interviews like crazy. Like Robert Roode shot on Hogan, and I thought it was good, but it's like.
It has no meaning, though.
But what bothers me about it, Bill, is that they know what the fans feel. And they instead just ignore that, and they're like, dude, brother, let's run a storyline on this, brother. Let's do it.
But Vince Russo, and I know it's not just Vince Russo, believe me. There's a lot more problems with TNA than just Vince Russo. He's a big problem, but there's more problems. Dixie Carter's a big problem.
I agree.
But, the guy always had the philosophy, no matter what, it doesn't matter, what you do on TV as long as you have as many eyeballs watching as possible. That's his goal. He thinks wrestling belts are props, that's how he doesn't there's no prestige behind the belts. Why? Because they're props. And TV is so scattered and unorganized and just crazy crap happening all the time. and nobody cares about it. There's no consistency, but yet you want to get as many eyeballs watching as possible. You know, it's nuts to me.
Yeah, and then there's another thing going on. The Miz is no longer champion, so that's kind of cool, and that's expected because you eventually have to wake up and smell the coffee that this guy doesn't have it. And they put it back on Cena, which isn't a huge improvement. And not only that, Cena went up to The Rock and basically said, "I'm going to hold the title all the way till Mania." So y'all enjoy that.
Yeah, have fun. And wasn't Christian World Heavyweight Champion for 3 days?
I think it was 2.
That was 2. I'm sorry.
2.
I'm sorry. I don't want to take away the prestige from Christian's glorious title reign.
Yeah, it was 2. And he jobbed to Randy Orton, who can't get over for anything. And finally, he gets another title, basically shot, reign, whatever it's going to be. And it's forced, and nobody really wants to see it. And, I want to talk
he's the Viper. He's the Viper. You need to respect him.
Talk about the Viper. I want to talk about Randy Headlock Orton. Listen, I've never seen a guy who had all the potential in the world, who showed great charisma, he showed great in-ring skills. I've never seen a guy just lose it all. Like, this guy, when he was the Legend Killer, when he was on his Intercontinental title reign with Evolution, when he finally became champion with Benoit, Randy Orton was awesome. Randy Orton was very impressive in the ring. Randy Orton was amazing.
I think it also has to do with just the way the WWE wrote television back then, too. I think a lot of that I think that's a big factor because the WWE writes television completely different now. They're writing for a different audience, so you're just not seeing the same type of superstars being created.
I agree to a certain extent, Bill, but come on now. When even on WrestleMania, on biggest stages of them all and all that stuff, Randy Orton sucks. He sucks.
Oh, yeah. His style has completely changed. His style has completely changed. Do not get me wrong. But he doesn't have anything else to prove in his mind. I know that. The guy doesn't have a passion to be the best anymore. He's going to work to get a paycheck. That's it. And I think that's what a lot of guys are doing up there. They're just going to work to get a paycheck, and then they're done. They don't have a passion to be the best. That's why you don't see new superstars being created. Back in the day, dude, when guys got a shot at the WWF, it was more than big. It was their whole life. It's what they had been waiting for. They had been working the indie circuit their whole lives to finally get a shot at the WWF. And so you saw guys become superstars because they had the passion to do it. And the opportunity, by the way. Because I'm sure there's a lot of guys that have the passion, but they just don't get the opportunity anymore. And I think a lot of that is because of the direction of the WWE, the fact that they are PG, and also they still have that mentality that if you're 6'7" and 295, 300 plus pounds, then you're going to be a superstar. And that's not the way it works anymore. This is not the Andre the Giant era. This is not the King Kong Bundy era. Nobody cares. You have to be athletic, and the fans choose the superstars. You do not make the superstars. The fans choose the superstars, period.
I agree, and that brings me to, a lot of people want to know my Tough Enough thoughts. I think Tough Enough is freaking awesome. I love Stone Cold as the head trainer. And, man, when it comes to the final 3, that's my favorite part of the show because it's just Stone Cold just ripping ass. That's all he does. He goes in there and just destroys people. And what I love about it, though, is nobody gave Austin the memo. Nobody gave Austin the memo that, whoa, the business is completely changed now. You don't go out there and you bust your ass. You don't go out there and you give it everything you have. Those days are done. We don't do that anymore, basically. So when Austin's giving these guys lectures and saying, you give it all, you got to do, you go out there and bust your butt and all this other crap, that's done. Honestly, Austin really just needs to take him to an improv class. That's really all he's got to do. He's got to give him some acting skills, teach him how to tan on a weekly basis.
Daily.
Do the GTL, the gym tan laundry, and basically take your acting classes, learn a headlock and a wrist hold, and you're pretty much good to go.
Yep, you're the next WWE champion. Absolutely. You're ready to rock and roll.
You're the Miz.
Yeah. That's all right.
That's pretty.
Everybody knows that's true, by the way.
I agree. And if you don't, you're in serious denial, and you're desperate for a change, and it's not there, buddy. Because honestly, the Miz is worse than Cena, in my opinion. He's a sack of crap. Yeah. But What else we got? Also, I haven't been watching The Ultimate Fighter that much. I watched like 3 episodes and I haven't watched since. I'll catch up with it. But
I caught the end of last week's.
yeah, the thing
but
actually I heard this one's down to 10 episodes too, which I think is a good idea because 12 episodes goes a little too long. But the thing that I think the UFC absolutely has to have now is the coaches have to have heat with each other. You got to do your Michael Bispings and Chael Sonnens, your Rashad Evans, Rampage Jacksons, some Tito's and Chucks, something like that, because it's boring when they don't have heat, when they're just kind of like, oh, okay, thank you, sir, and whatever.
And I hope Chael Sonnen gets a relief from his jail time, and just gets. I think he just got probation, didn't he?
He didn't serve any time.
Okay, good.
He got probation, but the problem.
When does his UFC suspension come up?
Well, the problem is Keith Kaiser is upset with him from the Nevada Athletic State Commission. And basically, he has to interview Keith Kaiser before he can get his license back. And basically, from what I understand, if you can't get licensed in Nevada, you can't fight anywhere in the UFC.
Yeah.
And the what's funny about that, though, Bill, is how Chael Sonnen normally isn't like, I'm not wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
He was on MMA fighting with Ariel Helwani, the MMA Hour, which everybody should check out every week on Monday. But he was like, I was wrong. I lied. I did this. Like, he was totally kissing Keith Kaiser's butt.
Yeah.
Like he just wants to get back in there.
He's a scumbag human being, I will say that. But, dude, I would love to see him have an opposite, coaching job with Vanderlei Silva. I would crack up, dude. It would be an hour of comedy TV every week.
Speaking of Vanderlei, Bill, there's a YouTube video. I don't know if you saw it, but it is so funny. Freaking Vanderlei's just like sparring, right, at King's MMA.
Yeah.
And this guy freaking does an axe kick to him, right?
Oh.
And he goes ballistic. Like, they're on one side of sparring, right?
Yeah.
Vanderlei just starts running him down with punches all the way clear on the other side, like knocking, like where other people are training. He's just going right through it. He gets him up against the cage, and he just unloads on him, right? Like, just starts completely unloading on this poor kid that gave him an axe kick. And it just cuts the camera, because they had to like stop the camera and pull him off of him, like, come on! You want more? I freaking love it.
Oh, man, that's so fantastic. So the guy just threw an axe kick, and it just pissed him off? Like, did it hit him?
It kind of hit him. It kind of with an axe kick, and because Vanderlei was pretty much holding his own on the stand-up, and then all of a sudden this dude hits he throws this axe kick, man, and Vanderlei gets so pissed. I mean, Vanderlei from Pride came out that day.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I was freaking rolling. Couple other things. Definitely go see Fast 5. It was awesome. Support The Rock. By the way, let's talk about The Rock's birthday. I thought it was good. I thought it was actually better than what I expected. The Rock came out and got like a 30-minute promo just going on.
Did he really?
Yeah, like.
What did he talk about?
The USA, we got Bin Laden and all that. But also, back to Miami and talking about his roots and where he came from and all that stuff. And his whole family was like ringside. Even his ex-wife and everything. And then he had like backstage segments like with the Rock's birthday party and all that. And he ended up like kissing Mae Young, and that was interesting. But they like Ziggler and freaking Vicky Guerrero brought in Mae Young, and they thought it would be funny because Rock got stuck with Mae Young, but he kissed her and he was just like, hello, Mae, like they were upset that it didn't work, basically. And like I said, when Cena won the belt, Cena had the belt, he came and got in his face and told him he was going to hold on until WrestleMania. But what
did The Rock say to that?
The Rock was like, that's fine, basically. I don't remember word for word, but he was all for it.
I didn't watch it, so.
Yeah, I know. You never watch it, but it's okay.
Yeah, I don't watch Tough Enough either.
Yeah, I know. It's your fault, too. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
It's actually good. I'm serious. Like, if you watch that Austin stuff, you're going to fall on the floor.
I know.
But anyways, he comes out for like a last promo type thing, and freaking Vince comes out. And from what I understand, he had no idea Vince was coming out. And Vince hadn't been on TV in a long time.
Yeah.
It's just basically like thanked him for coming home, and you could see like Vince's eyes watering. Like it was legit. It was real. And then they did a video package of Coming Home by P. Diddy, and it was really cool. And then like this huge pyro and confetti and everything happened, and The Rock got to celebrate like with his family, and it was cool. And he was like rubbing his arms all the time because he was getting so many goosebumps. So
Nice.
what I love about The Rock though is it's like, you know, people are like, you know, he never left wrestling, whatever. Honestly, if The Rock would just did what he does right now, I'd have been happy with it, because I still get to see him every now and then, and it shows he hadn't forget. Like, The Rock was like off the planet. He didn't want to talk about pro wrestling. He didn't want to be around pro wrestling fans. He didn't want anything to do with pro wrestling. And now all of a sudden he's on Facebook, he's on Twitter, he's constantly doing like fan stuff, like Find the Golden Ticket and all that other stuff. Like, The Rock is back for the fans. It's awesome, and I honestly think The Rock's going to be more successful because of it too. Because I feel like a lot of people felt that they were betrayed by The Rock, and I'm not necessarily saying that's the right thing, but honestly, I definitely felt like The Rock sold out. I felt like when he came and called the WWE's home and then never showed up for freaking 7 years, like, seriously, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know, and when he came back for WrestleMania, I was like, he's just here to promote Fast Five. That's it.
Yeah.
He's definitely, you know, proven that he's back, and he'll try to show up when he can, and then we'll definitely get to see him and Cena at WrestleMania. So I'm excited about The Rock being back, and it was cool. Fast Five was awesome. I liked Fast Five. I thought it's amazing how the series evolved from street racing to like these huge heist movies now. And all I got to say, for the people that haven't seen it, be sure to stay after the credits. There is a second ending, and it's definitely worth seeing. So if you're going to go see it, stay after the credits. And I think that's about it. I want to say that I started a Facebook page for this show. And basically, you just go to Facebook and you search Submit to Reality. It's Submit with the number 2 and then Reality, and you'll clearly see it. Just like us, and there's a bunch of pictures from events that we've been to previously. Like,
I know I'm gonna have to give you some more of mine, because I've got some too from other events. So
yeah, do it. And you can upload it too. It's no big deal.
Sweet. Yeah.
And then we've got that going on. Always follow me on my Twitter. I got Formspring, so I'm easy to contact. If you guys have any comments or thoughts on the show, let us know. And Bill, are you gone all next week?
Yep, I'll be on next week. I'll probably be back next Monday.
Okay.
And maybe we'll do a show that week.
Okay.
Depending on what happens, what goes down. So we definitely plan on getting another show next week.
Okay. And then just for some fans that want to know just my thoughts on the Cowboys draft, I thought it was really good. I'm pretty happy with Tyron Smith as our first pick. He was offensive lineman. I definitely wanted Patrick Peterson. When Arizona picked Patrick Peterson, I was completely crushed. But it is what it is. And basically we got Tyron Smith, and then we got Bruce Carter from North Carolina. I think he's going to definitely replace either Brady James or Keith Brooking. I don't know if he will this year, but he's definitely worth the pick. And as long as his ACL heals up good, then we got huge value in that pick. And then we got DeMarco Murray from freaking Oklahoma. He excites me. I'm really excited about him. He's a running back that's really he really reminds me of Felix, but I think that he's got better vision than Felix, and he's got really good hands, so he can do receiving. And I'm really excited. I think he's going to be perfect for Jason Garrett's explosive offense. And I just hope we have football. We got some other offensive linemen later in the draft. We got a fullback, whatever. The later were Browns, and then we even got a wide receiver that I don't know nothing about. Hopefully he turns out to be all right, but more than likely he'll probably just play special teams. So, but yeah, I just hope we have football. Sick of this stupid lockout crap, and hopefully we have football. And sorry, Instant Classic, but your Lakers are going down, buddy. Oh my gosh, they're down 3-0 to Dallas. And I have a feeling that Dallas is going to finish them off. It's the end of an era on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to that. I don't really care about basketball that much, but I love seeing Kobe Bryant lose because he hates the Cowboys and he's a Philadelphia Eagles fan. So in your eye, you little baby. And I think that sums it up.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on podbean.com, and we will see y'all next week.